Genshin's new cryo DPS Wriothesley is an interesting character. How's it going, everyone? This is Kay, and there's been mixed opinions about him, but let's break down the pros and cons you should consider before pulling Wriothesley. Going over his skills, you'll use his E skill to enter the chilling penalty enhanced state, which buffs Wriothesley. First, it offers interruption resistance. As a CQC unit, it is very vital compared to range characters like Yoimiya or Wanderer, where positioning can help a bit. Wriothesley will be up close punching enemies to death, so it's a good thing he won't be knocked back by a slight breeze. Another buff his skill offers is enhanced damage for his normal attacks when his HP is above 50%. However, his health is drained by 4.5% of his max HP when his attack hits, and despite being able to heal himself with a passive talent, a healer support is still highly recommended. You obviously want to keep his health very high cause for one thing, you don't want him getting killed, but most importantly, you want to maintain that buff. His skill will last for 10 seconds with a 16-second cooldown. For his burst, it doesn't offer any support or buffs, it's just a damage dealing attack. Having only 60 energy, you'll be able to recharge it quite fast depending on your team, especially with another cryo unit as support. It adds more damage to your rotations, but his burst shouldn't have any priority over his skill and normal attacks. For his A1 passive, it enhances his charge attack when its HP falls below 60%, which grants him a gracious rebuke. When using his CA, it'll deal 50% more damage, does not consume stamina, and it'll heal him equal to 30% of his max HP. This can be used once every 5 seconds, so again, don't assume you won't need a healer, but this does mean he's self-sufficient enough to manage his skills buff. His A4 passive gives him 1 stack whenever he loses or gains HP when he's in his enhanced states, which increases Wriothesley's attack by 6% per stack. Max stacks you can have is 5, so pretty solid attack buff just by punching enemies. So if you really want Wriothesley to work, sadly you may need his Constellation 1 as it completely fixes the problems with his A1 passive. Now C0 is still okay, but there's a huge difference between the two. So an issue with his A1 passive is that there are 2 restrictions. His HP needs to fall below 60%, which becomes an issue if you have a healer or Bennett as support. If you're keeping his HP high, you'll never reach this requirement. Now you can technically wait to heal him with support after he uses his enhanced CA, but that's stupid because it's like saying you're going to hold off on Bennett's buff or applying Hydro if you're using Kokomi just to get in 1 CA, thus ruining your entire rotation since his skill will be on cooldown by then, so don't do that. Second problem is that his A1 has a 5-second cooldown, which is very slow. At C1, it solves all these problems. Wriothesley will gain the A1 rebuke buff when his HP falls under 60%, or when his 5th NA hits while in his enhanced states. This completely eliminates the HP requirement, and since you're going to normal attack often, this means you can perform an enhanced CA within your rotation, which adds more total damage and heals him. The cooldown for his A1 will also decrease from 5 seconds to 2.5 seconds, making it more frequent, but that's not all. His enhanced CA's damage will be further increased to 200%, and when it hits while Wriothesley is in his chilling states, the state's duration extends for 4 seconds. The skill's extension can occur once per chilling states, and the thing is, the extension is nice, but as a DPS, his time on field is determined by your support. The biggest selling point is a rebuke buff being more flexible to trigger, which fits naturally into his combos. So this is sort of like Hoyoverse selling a solution to a problem they created for the character. Again, C0 will work, but oftentimes you'll sacrifice his A1 passive if you don't get his first constellation because of the HP requirement. If you want to commit into making Wriothesley powerful, then go for C1, which is a good enough stopping point. Now if you're really committed, the best constellations to have would be his C1 and C6. At level 6, his enhanced CAs gains 10% crit rate and 80% crit damage. It'll also unleash an ice attack that deals 100% of his rebuke CA's damage, so it basically adds a lot more total damage to Wriothesley's rotations. Now a gameplay issue with Wriothesley is his lack of AoE. He can hit multiple enemies if they're really grouped together, and I mean really next to each other. You can use supports like Kazuya to group enemies for him. One of his primary teams will be freeze teams, and frozen will usually require a good AoE range. Again, you'll have to rely on supports as Wriothesley will not be able to hit large areas to freeze multiple enemies. His elemental burst will be the best AoE attack within his kit, but because he doesn't have a large AoE range for his normal attacks, it typically means you'll use him for single target battles. Another team you'll use is Melt. A problem with that is that when triggering regular forward Melt with Wriothesley, meaning he's the one who's driving the reactions, it's inconsistent. Not all of his NAs will melt, and if that's the case, you typically want his best NAs to trigger the reaction. There is a leaked gameplay footage where by performing 2 NAs then activating his skill to perform his 5-hit combos, he can melt on his 3rd and 5th NAs, which are his highest numbers, but usually it'll be better just to reverse melt with Xiangling for consistency and ease of use. Now, a great thing about Wriothesley is that he's going to be fairly easy to build for most players. Most cryo DPSs are thanks to the crits rate provided from the Blizzard artifacts or cryo resonance. Wriothesley in particular will benefit greatly with the hunter sets. This does mean you'll have to farm a lot for good pieces, but you can build upon his crit damage or attack percentage for substats. His energy requirement for his burst isn't too high, nor does he really rely on his burst, unlike a lot of other DPSs, so energy recharge stats aren't as demanding, but you should still have some because it adds the total damage to your rotations if you use his burst often. You can get away with using the Shimenawa set if you have amazing substats, so building Wriothesley for endgame content, which is basically just Abyss, should be really easy. We're going to get Charlotte next update, but he's going to be the only other Cryo Catalyst user we'll have, and for him specifically, he's a DPS. And as a typical on-field DPS character, there are many weapon choices you can use with him. Obviously his signature will be the best, but he's quite flexible for weapon choices, which is also helpful for free-to-play players. Wriothesley also synergizes well with your typical strong supporters like, Kazuha, Bennett, Yelan, even Shenhe for cryo synergy and damage, even a C4 Layla for NA buffs. If you have some of these supports, then you can make the most out of Wriothesley's role. For non-gameplay reasons you may want to consider, and this is more so if you like his style, Wriothesley is a fist fighter character, and there's just something so unique and appealing to these types of characters in video games, probably because it's different from your usual sword, spears, bows, or spellcasters in RPGs. This is why some players like using Heizo since he's a martial artist. So overall, Wriothesley's looking to be an okay character. I mean, he's fine. You're going to see good damage with a proper build, but he's not going to beat out existing S-tier DPSs we have right now. He's not horrible by any means, but you will lose out on a lot of damage at C0, and at C0 and the A1 passive restriction he has, he doesn't really stand out. Wriothesley is one of those units who are meant for people who like the characters, and he can perform just fine in battle. Keep in mind, Farina is coming out next update, and she's looking to be very strong. Of course, there are some issues with her, but if you're saving for gameplay reasons, you may want to hold off for pulling on Wriothesley's banner if you want to go for her instead. But if you don't care for it, then hey, by all means pull for Wriothesley. Also, a certain doctor is coming back as well, so for gameplay reasons, he's been a huge asset in Abyss. You may want to save for him as well if you didn't pull him the first time. But comment down below to let me know if you're pulling for Wriothesley, or are you saving for Farina or that certain doctor I mentioned, or the other 2 5-stars that are returning, or you're just saving in general and you don't care about any of these new characters. I'd like to know. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for future Genshin Impact videos. Good luck on your polls, everyone. Till next time.